All right, it's 5:15. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the July 16, 2024 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals. Zoning present here today are Howell Morrison, John Bennett, Chapman McKay, Robert Richards, Allison Grass, and me, your chair, Jeff Tibbles. Also present this evening from staff, we have Lee Batchelder, Penny Ashby, and Emma McQuarrie. These proceedings are being recorded, and we ask that those who speak, please identify yourself for the record. We will conduct this meeting in the usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and the recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. The Board of Zoning Appeals usually, but not always, approves uncontested applications. For all applications, the board reserves the right to ask questions of the staff, applicant, or others in attendance prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application, or if there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else who is in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application and open up discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, or deny the application. The Board of Zoning Appeals zoning has the authority to do three things. Number one, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. Number two, grant special exceptions, a fact-finding function of the board. And number three, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54-924 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum is present and qualified to vote. However, an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the board members present and voting shall be required before a use variance may be granted. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. I'm required by the city's ordinance to ask you to swear to tell the truth if you intend to speak tonight. So if you do intend to speak, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You'll signify by saying, I do. Thank you. So we do have one deferral on this evening's agenda, and that is B4 for 94 Stewart Street. So if you're here to speak on 94 Stewart Street, you can leave the meeting early. They're not going to hear it. We'll go ahead and start into our agenda. We've got section A, review of minutes and deferred applications from previously advertised BZA-Z agendas. Number one, review minutes of the June 18, 2024 board meeting. The draft meeting minutes have been circulated to you, board members, and your packet of materials for this meeting. Do I have a motion? All right, Mr. McKay moves to approve. Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Morrison abstains because he was not present at the meeting. The motion passes and the minutes are approved. We're now into section B, new applications. Number one, 68 Haygood Avenue, West Side, Council District 6, TMS number 460-00-00-009, Zone DR1F/S. Discussion and vote to authorize chair to sign order reflecting decision by board as to the appeal by the Citadel of the decision of the zoning administrator regarding use of Johnson Haygood Stadium heard on June 4, 2024. This is a follow-up to a decision already made. No new arguments or testimony will be accepted. If any written comments are sent, they will not be considered by the BZA. The owner applicant is the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina. Ms. Batchelder, is there anything you need to present on this item?
No, I think you all received the order that was drafted by M. Doman, who's representing the board.
Yes, we did, and that order has been, the proposed order has been circulated to the board members, and so we'll go ahead and take it from here. Okay. All right, so we do not have public discussion or comment on this agenda item tonight. This is simply to formalize a prior decision that's been made by the BZA-Z, and so order has been circulated. Does anybody have any questions or any discussion about what's contained in the order? All right, hearing none, do I have a motion? Move approval. All right, Mr. Morrison moves to approve. Ms. Grass seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously, and the order is approved and will be signed at the conclusion of the meeting this evening by me. All right, the next item on the agenda, B2, 430 Meeting Street, Peninsula, Council District 4, CMS number 459-09-01-034, Zone GB, requesting a special exception under section 54-206Y to allow expansion of an existing late-night restaurant bar within 500 feet of a residentially zoned district by adding 211 square feet of indoor patron use area and 380 square feet of outdoor patron use area. Requesting a variance from section 54-317 to allow an existing restaurant to expand indoor and outdoor patron areas as noted above and eliminate one required on-site parking space without providing required parking. Expanded restaurant requires 11 spaces, 5 spaces to remain. The owner is 430 Meeting Street LLC. The applicant is Erica V. Harrison. Mr. Batchelder.
This is a commercially zoned property on the west or east side of Meeting Street, rather. And it's located just north of Wall Street. It's shown here on the zoning map, this parcel right here. The properties to the north and south are commercially zoned, but the properties to the rear are residentially zoned. So this is right at the entrance to the east side neighborhood. And here's an aerial view taken looking east. Application, survey of the property, applicant information here, part of the image overview. And this illustrates the existing conditions and the proposed changes they would like to make that require your approval. So right now they have a patron area inside the back portion of the building. Then there's a small outdoor space over here. So here's the small outdoor space. And And then they have 6 on-site parking spaces right here. What they would like to do is, and this is an office space up here, this room right here, and then storage right here, and then back of house stuff over here. But what they would like to do is make this office into a patron area, inside patron area. And that is reflected here in this diagram. And so that would add interior patron area. There's a requirement for parking based on that. And then they would like to remove 1 parking space right here and add some outdoor seating in this area right here. And that would add additional requirements for parking based on the outside patron area, square footage of that outside patron area. So by adding that patron area and removing 1 space, they end up with just 5 spaces. So they're basically increasing their parking requirement for the existing use while decreasing the amount of parking they provide. These are photographs that show the existing conditions. And this is the area of that parking space back here where they would like to add a patron area. And of course, this is the front room on Meeting Street right up here. Surrounding properties, photos. So just to refresh your memory, back in April of last year, you heard the request to extend the hours of operation beyond midnight for the existing restaurant use. And that was approved with an amendment to the application, limiting the extension of the operating hours to no later than 1 a.m. So they would have liked 2 a.m., but they settled for 1 a.m. per the board's directive. And then also there was this additional condition that this was an approval on condition that the business continues to operate in the same manner with the same character of management and operations. So that was board's decision in April of last year. And now we have the current request to increase patron area and decrease the available parking. So right now, I think they're compliant with parking based on the total requirement for parking that they have for that patron area. And the changes that they would like to make would alter that formula quite significantly, I think. But what I've explained to the applicants when we met a couple months ago about this is that I think it's reasonable to assume that they could expand the inside patron area to utilize this front room up here. They have a second floor on this front building, and I assume they've got space up there for offices and things like that. So it's not patron area on the second floor. So it just makes sense that on the ground floor, in this location, you could have additional patron area. It's a very small space. It's 211 square feet. And so that seems very reasonable to me, given that it's an existing building and they're not trying to enlarge anything to add that indoor patron area. So I'm supportive of that request. The outside patron area, I'm concerned about. And so I'm not supportive of removing the parking space up here and adding additional outdoor patron area to further increase their parking requirement for the establishment. Our requirements for parking are fairly minimal for the amount of people you can fit in these places and comply with building code requirements. So I have concerns about the impact that that would have on the residential area around this property. And, you know, these are uses that operate well into the night, and just the fact that you have people coming and going from cars in the neighborhood to the extent that they park in the neighborhood. And the doors opening and closing and engine starting, you know, after hours, later in the evening, can be very disruptive to residents. And I'm more focused as I get older on trying to preserve livability for residential areas and not so focused on enhancing commercial uses, which have slowly enhanced, gotten very vibrant over the years in my time here. And that will continue. I'm sure that trend will continue and move further up the peninsula. But so I'm concerned about that balance, and for that reason, I'm not supportive of this request. However, the applicants have done their due diligence, and they do have some support letters. And I think some of this was probably in the public comment packet, but they have a letter of support from the Eastside Community Development Corporation Board of Directors, indicating that they would like to express their support for the exception requested by the folks at Bedford Falls. And so they are supportive of this. Then you did see also in your packet a number of other folks that signed documents in support as well. But you also had a letter from one neighbor, a comment that was in the packet, public information packet, from a neighbor who does have concerns about this and is opposed. So that's my position. I've explained that to the applicants and they're aware of that. And so I'll just leave it at that.
All right, so just to recap, the special exception would, in order to allow the additional 211 square feet of indoor patron use area, will that require both the special exception and the variance?
I don't believe that would require the variance because they're not eliminating the parking. Special exception is just simply to expand.
Okay, so what the
without
city
providing-
is, yeah, I'm sorry, the city is recommending approval of the special exception for the 211 square foot indoor patron use area, but is recommending that the board deny the special exception for the 380 square feet of outdoor patron use area and deny the variance relating to the park.
That's correct. Thank you.
All right.
May I ask one more clarification? Of Lee.
Please.
So Lee, in the write-up on our agenda where it has parens, expanded restaurant requires 11 spaces, 5 spaces to remain. Does that refer to that proposed outdoor expansion?
No, that's the total combined.
And so what of the indoor only that the city recommends approval of, how many more parking spaces would that expansion indoor require?
I believe that would be 3, 1 per 100 or 1 per.
So the reference to 11.
Yeah, 3.
So the reference to 11 assumes both expansions, indoor and outdoor.
Correct.
Okay. And the indoor only would require 3 more.
Correct.
And if it were only the indoor approved, 1 space, the existing 1 of 6 would not be eliminated.
Efficiency of 2, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. I think I understand. Thank you.
All right, do we have anybody here who intends to speak against the applications for 430 Meeting Street? If you're to speak against these applications, just raise your hand so I can see it. Okay. Seeing no opposition, do we have the owner applicant here?
Yes,
Ms. Harrison?
I do have one question. I have one question, a point of clarification, only as it relates to whether or not I need to speak on the expansion of the outdoor space or if I need to speak as to the whole application, since there isn't an objection to the expansion of the indoor
Right.
area
And
and
as
variance for the parking space for the indoor.
understood, thank you. And I think our opening comments were revised during my tenure, about a year into it, I think, to reflect that even if there is no opposition and the city recommends approval, it's still not a done deal until the board votes, and therefore the board may vote if it wishes to deny both. So it is at your discretion as to whether you would like to address both, knowing that the board could vote up or down on either or both.
Wondering. Okay. All right.
I would suggest you
I'm
go
gonna
ahead
do
and address
both
it both.
because you need the record.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So I think going back, so I think we first have to address the parking and variance piece before we get into special exception. And primarily the reason why we have to address the special exception for the parking is because we can't make the application for special exception without it. As a part of the hardship test, we understand that we cannot cause a detriment to the adjacent neighbors or create a detriment to the neighborhood. One thing that this particular applicant has done has been very sensitive to is the idea that it is neighborhood centric and it's in completely a walkable establishment. And the perception was, I think originally back in 2022, is that it was going to be this beer garden, that was going to be a party central. But I don't think that can be the case, especially when you're looking at a patron area that encompasses approximately currently about 61 people that can be inside the patron area, and that includes the current indoor and outdoor existing use. Additionally, when you look at the scope of the support that comes for this particular application, you'll see the walkability. No one lives 10 miles away. It's not a destination restaurant. It isn't something that you will see cars driving to. I do want to go to one of the first slides that are in the original application, which shows this this wall. When you look at the very first image, what you see is basically a 6-foot wall, and it hides actually the 6 parking spaces that are located on that site. So on approach from Meeting Street, you don't actually see those parking spaces until you're literally right at the building. And so what you're surrounded by are these vacant lots, and one of them being Fetter, and also where the old Piggly Wiggly is located. And then further on down, you see some other vacant lots where you've got the hotels. And a lot of their patrons come from the adjacent properties that are exactly next door. And I do remember our last hearing where we came here to discuss our expansion of the of our space, expansion of our time. And one of the concerns was exactly what Mr. Batchelder enumerated, which is the idea that it's important to understand how much sound occurs inside in this residential context. And one of the areas he talked about was keys, people, cars starting up. And to make that, and there hasn't been a complaint about that when it comes to our expansion to 1 a.m. But also I wanted us to kind of focus in on, and if Lee can go to the slides that I kind of provided him. Right, so what we did is we took some images of what it looks like for Fetter and also the street. So this is a winter evening at Fetter. And Fetter currently has a paid parking lot. And of the 45 spaces there, you see how many are actually occupied. And these are kind of at these prime hours. And if we can go to some of the other slides that I can show you. So that's Friday, that's a Saturday. And I think what's the next one? And so that's another evening. And so I want to show one from April 2024, what it may look like. And so it's constantly this empty spaces that are not being occupied. So immediately 230 feet of next door to us is 45 spaces that are available to us. So the impact starts to become nominal at that point when discussing a need for what the city what city staff is supporting, which is 3 additional spaces when we're now looking for additionally 5. And then what the other concern was is, well, what about the actual neighborhood and neighborhood streets and noise interfering with that? And so I wanted to kind of show you also what Nassau Street looks like in the evening hours. And I think that's right. So here you see what Nassau Street looks like on a Friday night at some prime time hours. You can go, if you don't mind, just kind of scrolling through those and going to some of the, even in what it looks like after daylight savings, which is in April of 2024. So there's a plethora of parking on the street, but obviously my clients would continue to encourage people parking at the paid lots because number one, it's convenient, it's easier, and it takes people off of the street, and that's exactly what you would want them to do. And what we think is the concern that was the same concern that occurred in last year over expansion of our hours is the same concern as it is today, which is how many people would you be adding to the street noise or streetscape. And with the premise that we're completely walkable and the location of it, it would be a nominal effect. We wouldn't be causing a detriment. And even the number or the additional number of people that would be patrons is nominal in the sense of, I think we can only add about 18. And even with the outdoor patron area, that's still nominal because that 61 number, original 61 number is inclusive of our outdoor space existing already. So you're looking at still less than 100 people inside of a restaurant at any given time at max capacity, but that doesn't necessarily happen at one time. You wouldn't reach max. It's highly unlikely they would reach max capacity at 1 hour for their entire operation. And so even when you look at the timeframes at the high hours, which is 8, 9, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, there's still sufficient amount of parking adjacent, not only at the old Piggly Wiggly, but next door at Fetter. So I think we would be able to meet the variance because you wouldn't see, you want to be able to utilize a restaurant for that purpose, but we would meet the hardship test on that. When it comes to the special exception test, we continue to meet our obligations with regards to where we store our trash, where we have mitigated our noise with the high walls that are about at the cap 7 feet, 6 feet. They're continuing to place the trash in the proper location, and we haven't had any complaints or issues with that. So essentially, we have met the special exception test time and time again with how we've managed people, how we've managed noise, and how we've managed our garbage pollution and the rollout of recycling and trash. And we've also been able to manage and mitigate any issues with regards to parking and making sure that it doesn't infiltrate the neighborhood and create a negative impact upon them. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Harrison. Anybody else who would like to speak on behalf of the applicant? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Alexis Wright Singleton. I'm the secretary, board secretary for ECDC, Eastside Community Development Corporation. And as you know, over the years, we've had a lot of bars impacting our community. This is different. For one thing, it's not a bar, it's a restaurant. The other thing is that Bedford Falls is a good neighbor to us. They work within our community. They employ people in our community. There's never been a problem. And if they are going through anything, you understand, they let us know what's going on. We don't have very many businesses on the east side that does that. And we don't feel like a patio outside would impact our community anymore than their business being there. They're very quiet people. I mean, like I said, it's not a bar, it's a restaurant. And so there's no rowdiness, there's no police calls, there's no, like we get at other places in our community. We fully support them. And like I said, they contribute so much to the east side. Let them grow. It's not hurting anybody. Let them grow, seriously. And they are friends of the community. And we love them. So please, let them grow.
Thank you so much. All right, anybody else who would like to speak in favor? Yes, sir.
I'm Tony Disu. I'm the adjacent property owner at 10 Wolf Street. It's really the only residential parcel that's like directly affected by this. I don't know, I've been in these meetings and parking is always, technical and there's always gonna be, numbers and calculations that go to that. As a personal or as a human side of it, I would say that, and I want to talk more on the character of the two brothers that run the establishment, but one quick thing about the parking is that parking lot is like, people choose not to kind of park there because of where it is, already. But I won't really speak on anything else besides that. What I do want to say is, owning a property next to two restaurants is always going to be a risk. When I bought the property, it was owned by another restaurant group. They had sold and, they had introduced me to the new upcoming owners that were coming there. And since then, I think it's been about 3 years. I will say I don't have neighbors that are a restaurant. I have, a family that's next to me. I can speak on these guys' character. They're responsible business owners. There's no kind of risk of underage drinking in there because I know from the tenants that I have in the building, they won't go back there because they've had their IDs taken from there. And I hear them talking when I'm upstairs fixing an AC that, oh yeah, Brian took our IDs from in here. So I mean, that kind of stands as, a strong character point too. If there was something that, allowing people to be outside, there's obviously going to be inherent risk about that, but it depends on who runs the establishment and if they're going to kind of step up to the plate to monitor it, then there's not really any other business owner or establishment that I would feel confident in as much as these two guys here that would be able to monitor that space and make sure things are safe. So that's what I want to say.
Mr. Disu, may I get a clarification on
Yes,
one
sir.
thing you said? You said something about the parking being a place people don't want to park or something. What are you talking about? Federal parking lot?
No, sir. I'm talking about the actual physical parking lot in there. They have the parking.
The 6
space in there.
spaces, yeah.
But it's an in and out parking lot, and that's the building was built there, and it's something they have. You do have those parking spaces there, but it's already, somewhere that people are looking out elsewhere to park in that
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
You turn it on to Meeting Street as it is,
I follow you. I
Yeah.
follow you. Thank you.
So.
All right, thank you, sir. Anybody else wishes to speak in favor of the application for 430 Union Street?
Say something.
Yes, sir.
First of all, my name is Ivan Pankov. First of all, that picture is very, very old. Nothing to do with the case, of course, but, so my house is located right here. And, the street parking is busy, but it's not busy because of the customers of the restaurant. It's busy because these houses right here are full of students. They're rented out. Second, I agree about the Piggly Wiggly lot. Right here, all this space, and that's a lot of parking spaces. And all the people that visit the restaurant, and I've seen that almost every day because that's where I live. I see them walking into the restaurant, not driving a car to it. That makes me think that they do park somewhere else and walk into the restaurant. Other than that, I just want to say that Brian and Brendan have been very responsible with noise and everything else, and I'm happy that they're there, actually. They're positive for the neighborhood rather than negative. And when it comes to the parking space, how I said, most people are walking into it. So I don't think that's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Panko. Anybody else who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Yes, sir.
Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Rowan. I moved down from Philadelphia about 2 years ago, coming up at the end of this month. And at the time, didn't know really a soul in town. And meeting Brendan and Brian, they were kind enough just to take me in and tell me a little bit about Charleston, treating me like family since day one. And that always really meant a lot to me. Just the responsibility of the fashion in which they run Bedford. It's somewhere I feel comfortable enough that anytime my family is visiting from out of town, I want to take them there. I want to have them sit down, have dinner, and get to know the people that I've like come to know and love here. So much like yourself, or I forget who said it, but they are like family members for us at this point. I've never been in there when it's been hectic or rowdy or out of control. It's always a very clean operation, and somewhere that I think is a great addition in the neighborhood. So.
Where do you live?
61 Reed Street. So. That would be, yeah, right here.
Thank you.
Walk to it every time.
Thanks.
Good.
Thank you so much. Anybody else who'd like to speak in favor?
Yes, go ahead.
Just gonna.
Yes, sir. Sure. Come on up. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Brian Kirkpatrick, I'm one of the owners of Bedford Falls. Thanks for having me here tonight. Something I just want to carry on what Ms. Harrison was saying before about spot right next to this fetter. It's just over 200 feet away from us. For those who don't know, Fetter's been in town since 1967. But it's been located on Meeting Street since 1970. So I think it's fair to say that Fetter is a staple to the community. I don't see it go anywhere. Piggyback with Tony and some of the other people are talking about here. Yeah, a lot of times we will direct people into Fetter. There's 45 spots. It's the first turn right next to us. So you can't miss it. It's right next to us. Now, let's say, for example, let's say that is packed, which I've never seen. You have 250 Meeting Street, which is another 75 feet away. Right, that is on the other side of the Big Bag Breakfast patio. We also have a corner, we are located between Wolf and Spring. On the other side of Spring Street, you have lot 21079. And I think that's what Ivan was talking about, the Piggly Wiggly. That's close to 100 spots. Then you have Meeting and Wolf, right next to Unlimited. That's 3 paid public spots, right across the street from us. You have Meeting in Reed Street. That's 14 paid spots, right next to Home and Suites. It's closer to the Meeting side, all within 400 feet. You have 28 Wolf Street, right across the street from Sky Garden. That's over 30 public spots. That's palmetto parking. And I could go on. I mean, there's hundreds of spots here. I mean, this is just keep doing this here. I just want to clear, you know, like, you know, if you guys, you know, went along with this, you know, we wouldn't do anything to embarrass ourselves. We wouldn't do anything to embarrass the city. The character, I heard Mr. Tibble talk about the character before. The character will not change. And I hear the city's concerns about the parking in the neighborhood. That's why we took photos every night of Nassau Street, of Wolf Street, of Columbus Street. We've been doing this every night for several months now. One of the reasons why we took those photos is that we're not directing our customers over there. We're directing them over to Better, we're directing them to God knows how many parking spots. It's never been an issue. So we don't want to be a nuisance to the neighborhood. We love it here, best decision of my life. But you know, I understand where you guys are coming from. You guys have a hard job, but this is, I think what we're asking for is reasonable, and we're asking for a little leniency here. So I have nothing else left. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkpatrick. We've got a couple board members with questions for you. Go.
Yeah, I'll ask you this. So those, that you just gave us. So you, on the application, it states 380 square feet of patio space, and then this says 198.
Correct. So when we met with the city a couple months ago, we were originally asking for 2 spots. And then we changed that to 1 spot. And we wanted to do 3 4 tops, and then a couple of 2 tops. Our big thing was visibility. It wasn't so much that we're looking to make an entire patio outside. It's visibility. It's people walking by, seeing the red umbrellas, and that's really what we're asking for.
So what are you applying for now? 198?
We are, yes, sir. We're applying for the one. No, well,
380.
I'm gonna listen to my lawyer though. Yeah. Okay.
380 square feet, because that was the measurement from the CAD drawings, and that was the more accurate measurement.
But it's still 12 tops, 3 tables of 4, or is it 3 tables of 4 plus 2 more tables of 2?
3 fours, 3 deuces.
5 total. 2 of them are two tops.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
So is this what it would look like? Is that why we're?
Yeah,
doing this?
that's what we would like to go for.
That's how they were trying to mock it out as to how much that space would look like, because there's a segment that actually isn't a part of the parking count, and then there's the parking space. So when they were trying to do the measurement, when they put it through the CAD, that was what 380 mapped out.
And this is just 1 space.
Yes, the equivalent of 1 parking space.
Thank you.
Mr. Kirkpatrick, who usually parks in the 5 or 6 places next to you? Do your employees need to use those, or do you let your employees use them, or do you use them? Who parks there?
Many of our employees are employed on the east side.
Yeah,
One of our
pedestrians.
yes, and so it's all pedestrians. We had 48 letters of support for us, and they were all people that walked here from the east side.
Okay, so to answer the question, those spaces are typically used by patrons. Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Kirkpatrick while he's up here? All right, thank you, sir. Any further speakers in support? All right, seeing none, in opposition, we're ready to close the public hearing and discuss among the board members. Questions, comments? Discussion.
Well, I'll say something. All the meetings that Kirkpatrick's have come to and things they brought before us have had the same neighborhood support that they have here, except I don't remember anybody ever bringing 45 letters in favor before us. It's a lot, that's a lot of support. I am swayed by the argument that there's an abundance of public parking on the meeting street, half block from this place, and by the point made by the gentleman that lives on Nassau Street, that the people who park on Nassau Street are typically the students in those apartments. And so I lean in favor of granting both variance and special exception.
I have a question for Mr. Batchelder.
Yes.
Do you, I guess, it's obvious that the community, has a lot of love for these owners. They, every time and again, they come before us and express that. I guess my only concern is if they are no longer the owners of this establishment, how, if we were to approve the outdoor seating area, how, what kind of conditions would we put in place to ensure that it remains what it is proposed to be right now?
Well, you probably would want to add a condition about the no live music or amplified sound outside.
And if it were, if they wanted to expand it, they would have to come before the board again, if a new owner wanted to expand it.
Expand or change that
Okay.
condition.
And we can't sunset the use with the owners.
My understanding is we can't do that.
And we've got, but the first
Yeah.
slide that was put up there
Right,
has the specific wording in it that maybe we ought to look at again.
This slide,
This conditional language.
the second condition.
Yeah. The business continues to operate in the same manner and with the same character of management and operations to me. And we could add to it certainly to be more specific, but to me, that covers the music issue. There's no music now outside, to my knowledge, under what's already in that first approval. I believe they shouldn't have any music outside. Unless I don't understand what they have now, and maybe they already have some non-amplified music out.
Well, let's say if this is an issue, Mr. Kirkpatrick, you intend to play music outside?
There'd be no live music outside.
What about through speakers?
No speakers outside. No, we won't put speakers outside.
Music outside.
I think it would be good to put the condition in though. I mean.
Sure.
I
Oh, yeah,
personally
no,
feel
that's,
better
but
if
what I'm
it's
saying
not,
is that
yeah.
they don't have an objection to that.
Okay,
condition.
I didn't know. We just meant number 2. Okay.
You want
Somebody
to,
else?
you want to use that similar language that we've used so often for establishments on no live music and no, what is it?
Amplified
sound.
No amplified sound above speaking tones.
That's fine.
So we'll have, so what I'm hearing sort of, some consensus being built around is the idea of approval of both the special exception and the variance that have been requested under the conditions, number one, that the business continues to operate in the same manner and with the same character of the management management's fund operations, and then that number 2 condition is no live music or amplified sound above speaking level tones outside. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. Somebody want to make a motion?
So moved.
All right, Mr. Morrison moves to approve, subject to those 2 conditions. Ms. Grass seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. The motion passes unanimously and is granted, and you all have your special exception and your variance, subject to the 2 conditions that we just discussed, which we'll implement in the order, which is business continues to operate in the same manner and with the same character of management and operations. And number 2, that no live music or amplified sound beyond normal speaking levels outside. Okay, all right, thank you all. All right, the next item on our agenda, B3, 775 Riverland Drive, James Island, Council District 3, PMS number 341-00-00051, zoned SR1, requesting a variance from section 54-824 to allow the subdivision of a lot to create lot X2 without the 50-foot lot frontage requirement. The owner applicants are Walter A. and Beth J. Stinger. Mr. Batchelder.
So here is a lot residentially zoned, single family residential SR1 zoning on Riverland Drive. And this building right here is the Charleston County Parks and Recreation Commission office headquarters. And then further to the south on that same side is the James Island Senior Center and the Charleston County Park, James Island County Park. And then you've got residential properties across Riverland Drive. And this is a residential property right here. This is I had the dimensions, but I don't have them written down. But you can see it's very long, very deep. It's got, I think it's got 100 feet of frontage. Let's just look at the plat. So there's 100 feet of frontage on Riverland Drive, and then 523 feet. Well, yeah, it looks like 523 feet from front to back. So very large lot, over an acre in size. And city zoning requirement says that to subdivide this property, you've got to maintain a minimum of 50 feet of frontage. Each lot has to have 50 feet of frontage on Riverland Drive. And while that's possible, it's not really practical or reasonable, I don't think, given the shape of the property. And this is the existing home on the property. This is a garage right here. So trying to separate that property down the middle means probably demolishing one or both of those buildings. So what the owner is proposing is to put a new property line here, creating this parcel in the back, X2, which would be just over a half acre in size. And then designating this existing driveway as an easement for access to the rear lot, and then sharing the single driveway on Riverland Drive with that new lot. And that seems like a reasonable proposal to me, given the size of the property. It is unique, I think. And if you look back at this, I thought I had that. Yeah, right here. This is a larger view. You see all the odd configurations around here, but you know, these are situations where some unusual surveys or subdivisions have taken place over the years because of the odd shape of these properties. And so I think this solution that they're proposing on this lot, which is unusually deep and compared to nearly all the properties in that area, I think that's a reasonable solution given the restrictions on it. So I support this, and with a condition that the subdivision utilizes the easement as shown with one driveway access point on Riverland Drive, so we don't end up with more than one at some future, but I think that's reasonable.
All right, thank you, Lee. Anybody here who wishes to speak in opposition to the application for 775 Riverland Drive? All right, seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owner or applicant here? Yes, sir. Anything you'd like to say to the board?
Not really, it's pretty straightforward, a lot easier than the previous. Just, creates an opportunity for another, potential home, another property, another tax base for Charleston.
Thank you, sir. Questions?
I just have one question for this. So the new lot would be for single family.
Right,
residents.
it's zoned single family, it could have one home on it.
I'll make a motion.
All right, Mr. McKay moves to approve. Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. With the condition.
Oh, with the convention.
Yes.
They only have one entrance and exit.
Sorry.
Nope, thanks for catching that. So you understand the condition.
One entrance.
One point of ingress egress, right? Okay.
Thank you.
So as amended with the condition, 1 point ingress egress, Mr. McKay has moved. Mr. Bennett has seconded the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously, and the variance for 775 Riverland Drive is approved with the condition regarding access. Thank you. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda, B4 has been deferred. That brings us to B5, 46 Rivers Point Row, Rivers Point, Council District 11, TMS number 426-04-00-084, zoned SR1, requesting a variance after the fact from section 54-301 to allow a fence, gate, and detached accessory building storage shed with a 57-foot front setback, a 1.5 foot east side setback, 60 feet and 9 feet are required. The owner applicant is Roman J. Rosick. Mr. Batchelder.
So this is a residential property on James Island. And it backs up to a large lake. And here's an aerial view showing the property. And you can see some large trees on the sides of the property. Here's the applicant's materials, their explanation of the hardship, and information about the trees and architecture of the shed. And then lots of photographs, more photographs of other sheds that exist in the area. And this photograph right here is actually the property we're talking about. The shed is over in this area right here. So here's a site plan, shows the existing home and all the existing trees on the property. And this is the shed that was built right over here. And the zoning ordinance has a large front setback requirement for accessory buildings. And so that's one issue that needs a variance. And then there's the side setback requirement of 9 feet, and the shed's only 1.5 feet off the side property line. So those two things, that front setback of 57 feet is only 3 feet shy of the 60-foot requirement. So that's pretty minimal, but the side setback variance is more substantial. But I think the applicant makes a good case for their request. They have these trees in the back on the sides that because if this was the typical lot, you'd have a shed somewhere in the back corner of the property or along the back property line. But in this case, the property along with the neighboring properties has the benefit of that large, that lake in the back. And if you put the shed in the back, of course, you're going to end up blocking their view or a neighbor's view. And then you've got an easement over here on this side of the property, that drainage easement that precludes any sheds or buildings or anything being built within that easement. So that side doesn't work. So you're really left with this area over here. Build it, and this is the existing shed that was put in. These are photographs of that, lots of information. Information about the shed, 16.5 feet by 8.5 feet roughly. Elevation, information, and picture of the shed. You see it, kind of barely see it peeking over the fence right here, street. So this just highlights the actual location of the shed on the site plan. Then this illustrates the trees. So the shed is set back away from this tree. And you've got, of course, large trees here and over here. So more up close view of that. And letters from neighbors, and in fact, the neighbor on this side right here submitted a letter saying they're supportive of this request. And so lots of support in the neighborhood. We're not aware of the objections or concerns from anybody. I think it's a reasonable request, and we recommend approval.
All right, thank you, Lee. Anybody here in opposition to the application for 46 Rivers Point Row? Seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owner applicant here?
It's auxiliary Rosa Roman's wife.
All right, Mrs. Rosick, anything you'd like to say to the board?
For your time and
Why is it after the fact?
from what I understand, the architect that we worked with told us that permit was not required.
So you had an architect for the shed?
My husband's an engineer in construction, so everything is built to hurricane-proof standards and to the highest details. So he had his team. He built it. I apologize. He's at the hospital right now, which is why I am here instead of him. But he built it so that it was to build piece by piece. It wasn't a shed that was brought in because there was that grand oak tree in the way, so he didn't want to be driving over it. And it's a very small area of the yard that it was basically the only space that made sense between the electric line, the view, and the easement that made sense for it. So he designed it. It's kind of
He sounds smart enough to know he needed to come before this board to me. But I'm going with the city's recommendation, but I don't like after the fact, personally, people who know better. He should have brought his architect in here to say, I made a mistake and told them they didn't need to go before BZA. That's what he should have done.
Or was he the architect?
He's an engineer.
So there wasn't an architect.
No, she said there was an architect and
There's a letter here. I don't know if that's the person. Yeah, she.
I don't want to hold up things over the city. I'm just letting off steam about personal.
no, I think it should be
Yeah, I think
given,
we
we
should
should
talk
give the
about
public
it.
notice that it is not appropriate to build any building that is not in conformance with the ordinance,
Including fences.
including fences and structures.
I agree with you. It's frustrating, when it's after the fact. I mean, I agree with the city's recommendation.
All right, Mr. Morrison moves to approve.
second.
Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion is granted and you, after the fact variance, been granted. Thank you. I hope your husband is okay. All right, next item on the agenda. We're now at B6. 1275 Camerton Street, Charlestown Estates, 2, Council District 9, PMS number 352-12-00-028, zones SR1, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow a detached accessory building, storage shed, 288 square feet with an 18-foot side street setback, a 6-foot rear setback, 25 feet and 25 feet are required. The owner is Cameron Widman Lee. The applicant is Justin Lee. Scratch out.
This is a residential property in West Ashley, and this map illustrates the peculiar and unique configuration of this lot. And the house that's on it is situated in a way that, I don't know what, I always look at these and I wonder what was the zoning person thinking back in whenever this house was built? How were they applying the setback requirements? I think they've changed a little bit. But anyway, and maybe this house predates the city being over there, I don't know, but you can see it's very odd shape and configuration. So anyway, they are proposing a shed and it would be over in this area, right over here. Of course, you can't put a shed in the front yard, that wouldn't be good. And they have a small backyard back here. Yeah, so this is really the only place to put a small storage shed. Aerial view. And their application information. This illustrates the location of the shed that they would like to place on the property. And this is an illustration showing what it would approximately what it would look like. This is the house, the property in question right here. So the neighbor's house is right over here, and they've submitted a letter in support. These are letters right here from those neighbors. And this, I think this is the neighbor who's right next door at that adjoining property right here, indicating that they're in favor of this proposed variance for location of the shed. And other letters. So lots of support in the neighborhood. I think it's a situation that meets the variance test, and I recommend approval.
All right, thank you, Lee. Anybody here in opposition to the application for 1275 Camerton Street? Being no one in opposition, do we have the owner or applicant here? Yes, sir. Anything you'd like to say to the board?
Very odd lot. Would stand for itself.
Okay. Any questions, discussion? Ms. Grass moves to approve.
Second.
Ms. Richard seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously. And the variance for 1275 Camerton Street is granted. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda, B7 35 Taylor Street, French Quarter, Council District 8. PMS number 458-09-02-007, zone LP, requesting a special exception under section 54-511 to allow 7,658 square feet of indoor patron use area and 1,880 square feet of outdoor patron use area without providing the required parking spaces. 66 spaces are required. The owner is Prelo Enterprises LLC, the applicant is Simmons Young. Mr. Batchelder.
35 Prelude Street is the former Harbor Club property. And you'll recall this has been before the board a couple times. Those applications were filed by on behalf of a different prospective buyer. And first one was for a small hotel, and that was approved. Second one was for residential with retail on the ground floor, and the parking issue and density of the number of units was the issue, and that was approved. But for whatever reason, they couldn't make the project work for them, so they dropped the contract, and now we've got a new potential buyer looking at this property. It's still vacant, and they would like to convert it into an event space. So here's the building and application information about the property, photographs, some building. About it. And these are floor plans just showing where the patron areas within the building would be. Of course, you have the circulation areas in here and bathrooms, and back of house areas, kitchen, storage over here. But these are all spaces that would be utilized by event goers, patrons, and so that's the significance of the yellow shading. And they've calculated the square footages of the indoor patron areas. This is the second floor, and then the top floor. And the outdoor space that the Harbor Club utilized is shown here. And that has a different parking requirement, but they've run those numbers and they come up with 7,658 square feet of indoor patron area, 1,880 square feet of outdoor patron area for a requirement of 66 parking spaces. So quite a large requirement for that size facility. And of course, the property has no on-site parking. But it does have just to the south, a public parking garage. And I don't know what the Harbor Club did for parking, but I assumed people would park in that garage when they would go to the Harbor Club. And I think that's what the applicants are proposing to do. And there's another public parking garage not too far away, both operated by the city. And so they'll remain public parking garages for definite future. So there are opportunities, and the building is vacant. It has no space for parking, and people are, in my sense of this, very hopeful that something will come along and reactivate this building so that it's not just a vacant building that attracts and is not kept up. And this is a letter from Jeffrey Smith, who is a owner of some parts of the property behind this property. So this is an East Bay Street property. Right. So right back here, this property on East Bay Street. And he's written in support of this. And then I think in your packet, public comment packet, there's a letter or a submittal comments from the French Quarter Neighborhood Association president indicating their support for this. And I gave the information to the applicants for contacts with the One Venue Range Condominium Association across the street, because you might recall when the hotel came before us, that application came before us. They had some contact with that condo association, and that condo association had utilized Trenton Walker in their negotiations and discussions, and they'd come up with an agreement about some things on the hotel operation that was made part of that approval. And so I gave them the contact information of those folks, and I'm sure they contacted those folks and never heard a word from them. So I'm not sure what the situation is there. But I do think that, number one, it's a use that of the building that nobody is objecting to. And in some respects, it's similar to what was there. In many respects, it's similar to what was there. So I think the request is reasonable, and I support it, but I do have a concern about the rooftop area, and I hadn't had a chance to discuss this with them, but I was thinking the same type condition that we just applied to 430 Meeting Street would be appropriate here, where there's no live music or sound amplification outside above normal speaking levels. And
What about hours?
well, their hours are restricted to no later than 12 midnight, because this is zone limited business. And that is, actually, it's 11, I'm sorry. This is limited business, and limited business has a hours of operation restriction, no later than 11 p.m.
Okay, thanks, Lee. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak in opposition to the application at 35 Salem Street? Anybody in opposition? Seeing nobody in opposition. Mr. Young, would you like to address the board, or?
Yeah, we'll make one comment. This is Chad Coleman, also the rep. We did speak with One Venue Range. They are also going to be wanting us to check with them before the BAR, and they mentioned that their concern, any concern they may have, could be addressed then. So we would like to push the amplified music out until that time. And the owner is also there. Is it also with us? So we are in touch with.
So let me make sure I understand that. You say you can't, you're not certain whether or not the restriction on live music or amplified music louder than normal conversational tones, you're not sure whether or not that condition would be something that the owner would agree upon, is that?
Yes, and I think all of the ownership is not here. I think we'd have to consult.
Right.
all of that.
And of course, it's the board's decision whether to approve.
Yes.
And so the question to you is, do you want the board to go ahead and consider and make a decision on that? Or would you prefer to defer that until such time as you get some clarification? Because the board can make a decision tonight to impose that condition. I don't know if that impacts your overall application or not. You'll have to make that determination yourself.
That condition is not a condition that we contemplated, since it was, as the Harbor Club, an outdoor venue on the roof, which had live or had events on that space. So there's also the outdoor venue right next door. So that's a condition that would be problematic for the use that we're trying to do.
All right, any other?
We can come to some agreement with the neighborhood on something everybody can live with, but can get a flat condition of no outdoor music would be a problem.
The issue is no amplified music, probably. That's typically what we have come before us. We don't know if there are any conditions on the next door property you reference or not. I mean, this is an issue that probably needs to be explored kind of closely.
I think there's other venues for that to happen.
There are other venues that do not have limitations on music.
Another venue other than this hearing. For us to work out with the neighbors how to.
Well, I don't know if the BAR has the scope to establish a noise limitation or not. I don't think they deal with more than architecture and looks and materials and et cetera. So I think that's probably our problem.
And y'all have not spoken to One Venue? You've reached out to them, but you've not met with One Venue?
We have met with one member, two members of the board, who I think one was the president, he was provided as the president. One possible option would be that we could comply with the zoning ordinance, historic neighborhood, to address all these items, which I think has a decibel level associated to a certain hour, I'm not sure.
Well, I guess I'm concerned if you haven't, it hasn't been presented to the residents that that's a possibility. That would be something I wouldn't be comfortable recommending for approval if they don't have any idea that there could be live music.
The question came up and they chose not to come to this meeting or present any opposition. And when we met with the people at One Venue, they were very enthusiastic about this building being occupied. They've lived with people living in front, sort of front door entrance. As you all know, an unoccupied building is a danger. As far as electrical issues, there's been a significant water leak. So we think that the benefits of occupying the building.
We probably all agree with that, Simmons. It's just that we got to get more clarity about what goes on in this immediate neighborhood with sound in order to see if we have to put any conditions on the outdoor use part of the sound. I mean, that part of your application. And we don't know, for example, if the conversations with One Venue range even encompass the question of music. We're not trying to impose limitation on music inside the building, but we almost always discuss sound for outdoor applications, even with this little one we just had a few minutes ago. And so it's just something we routinely do. And this is a big building. And if somebody was going to put a live band on top of this building with amplified music, and we had not contemplated it when we voted it all, it could be a problem. And I just think we ought to defer this and get this ironed out and let everybody know what particularly One Venue is okay with. Sounds like they just don't want to get involved. They don't want to say yay or nay, and they're not going to come. But
Can I make one clarification?
yeah,
We did go on the rooftop with that group and they sort of pointed to the window and said, we don't want it facing that way, we want it facing the other way.
They had an agreement with the Harbor Club about how the bands were, or the music was set up on the roof, so it's not to face.
aimed a certain direction. Yeah.
That's right, so that.
Well, I mean, that might be something that works for us.
Right.
We just have to know what the specifics are, and especially what One Venue is okay with, and it'll probably be okay with us. But this is too vague. I mean, this is just a big site. We want this site occupied. The city does, everybody does. I mean, this is something we would like to approve. It's just a little bit, it makes me nervous. The looseness about this music piece, because if it happens once and then 10 people from one Prelo start raising cane and say, how did this happen? It's a nuisance. And then we got a bigger mess.
I don't think that you're approving anything that didn't already occur when the Harbor Club was there. With the same.
Okay, I just don't know. Nobody's told me what
We
the
don't know
Harbor
that. We
Harbor
don't know
Club's
what the
limitations
history is.
were.
There have been many a wedding, many an outdoor event on that patio. It's been there since '68, something like that. We're not doing anything different than what's been done there for decades.
By the patio, you mean the rooftop? location.
Well, it's been a restaurant for, since the Colony House and sometime in the sixties.
No, I know that.
We're actually, we think that we're actually making the product less occupied. You know, the Harbor Club is breakfast,
Right.
lunch, dinner event.
Right,
We're taking out breakfast. lunch,
except that all of your events are likely to offer music of some type, indoor or outdoor or both, I presume. If it's gonna be primarily a wedding reception type venue. And
That was a service that the Harbor Club offered its members. was to use.
so are you saying there were no restrictions on the Harbor Club for music at all anywhere? Is that what you're telling us?
I don't know the specifics.
That's my problem. We don't know the specifics either. That's exactly
But
the issue.
group hasn't come here to say, hey, we'd like you to do what, you know, X, Y, or Z. They said that they recognize that we're doing similar to what was there before. They would like us to be good neighbors to them, and that's what we plan to do.
I don't doubt any of that. I just want to know what the Harbor Club's limitations were and what you are going to do with specificity about whether it's decibel level or whether it's which direction we aim the band. Whatever those details are, I just want to know them.
Lee, is there not a decibel level requirement already in the code?
I don't know what the city's sound regulations are, other than I think they take effect at 11. But
A typical event that we would have would be over, generally speaking, earlier.
A lot of generalities here. I think you've heard sort of the board's concerns. I think you can have some time to address them. I don't know that.
Hey, Chad, you had an agreement in the documents I gave.
Excuse me, can you identify yourself?
Excuse me, Scott Benedict, and I'm actually the owner's rep, the owner of the building. And so AJ actually had an agreement.
Come on up here and address the board, please.
I'm sorry,
It's all right.
I don't have the document in front of me, but they had worked out the veranda situation, and essentially they were it was gonna be a hotel, but they had a veranda and they were gonna be using it for activities. We did have a nice agreement with AJ, and I'm sure they would want something similar to that. So I don't know if you had that handy.
By they, you
I just-
mean one Prelo?
Yes,
spoke to
yes,
that.
yeah, one Vendu or.
One Vendu.
Yeah. So, but they had all that stuff worked out with their attorney and stuff, and it was a nice agreement that was done.
The Trail and Walker deal.
right, but one distinction between that and this proposal, this just treats the building the way it exists today.
Yeah,
And their proposal was to go back and reconstruct the
on the back
The-
side there.
additional story here and then put the gable roof on the full length of the building from along Prelo Street. And then have the rooftop area back here.
I remember there was sound.
Yeah, it was addressed in that.
You know, comments about it, so
Right.
I would imagine it would be very, very similar. I mean, it was agreed upon at that time.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that's a concern, of course. Then New Range, I don't know what goes on up there, but I'm sure it's not quiet.
Well, that was a problem a number of years ago. When one Vendu Range was constructed and there was a different owner of the Vendu Inn. That rooftop had noise issues and it ended up going in front of livability court on numerous occasions until they finally ironed something out and the ownership changed. And the owner that's there now has made a huge investment in the property and fixed it up and
Well, I
made
think
the
that.
hotel very nice. So they have an interest in making
Yeah.
sure it's nice.
So, you know, I think what the nice thing about their use, it's very similar and probably a little lower key than the Harbor Club was for the fact that Harbor Club was open every day and they rented it out essentially the same way these people would be doing. Nice thing is that this thing doesn't have to be totally torn down on the back and renovated.
So, you know, it's a very low-key use other than some renovations on the inside. So it would be certainly less disturbance for the folks across the street once they get done with what they're doing right now. But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's any change from what it was before. And
And I think we just need clarification about that and before we can make a decision. 'Cause I think it sounds like we're all prepared to apply that condition about the noise, but, you know, we could have more information.
But I'm sure they would want to have music if they've got people up there, whether it be non-amplified, but something up there. I'm sure they would want to.
We're not
have
opposed to the
people
music
there.
in principle. We
Yeah.
just want to know
The details.
what the details are.
Is there a decibel limit for the city? Have they talked about any of that? I mean, is that in the, I'm sure they wouldn't go above that, but
The decibel limit, as a practical matter, is what your neighbors won't take to livability court with the complaint.
There is actually, there is a number, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're hearing is you're gonna have a hard time getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes tonight without some sort of accommodation or statement as to what the owner can live with respect to noise requirements. And so I think we've heard several times comply with the ordinance, comply with the ordinance. And I think what you're hearing is that's not sufficient for you to get a vote tonight to get approval. And so what I would suggest is you go back and you present something, we defer it tonight, you come back with some proposal. And even if the proposal is, we're gonna comply with the ordinance, and we've talked with the owners at one venue and they agree, no problem, then I think you're gonna have a comfort level with the board to get it approved. So we're not
but
saying.
you're not opposed to music.
We're not saying no.
No.
We're not saying no. We're just saying give us a more concrete proposal on how you're going to avoid the contention that noise is a problem at the building.
Okay, well, I mean, I think that's the best we can do.
Yeah.
All right, good. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to defer.
Okay, Mr. Bennett moves to defer. Ms. Richards seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So we're gonna defer it and we're just gonna give you time to come back to give us a proposal that addresses the board's concerns about noise. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is 48 South Battery Street, Charlestown District, Council District number 8. PMS number 457-16-01-054, zoned SR3, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow an elevator 49 square feet, elevator landing 82 square feet, and shed 66 square feet with a 38.6% lot occupancy, 35.6% existing lot occupancy, 35% lot occupancy limit. The owners are Stacy and Allison Nutt. The applicant is Angie Shar, Meadows Inc. Mr. Batchel.
Here's an historic home on South Battery and limited options to be able to add an elevator, so that's an addition to the building. And then there's a request for a small storage unit at the back of the property, and so here's some information about it, and their arguments for why they feel they meet the variance steps, but site plan. It's just a courtyard in the back. And existing conditions, and so they would, let's see, it's existing, so they would add the elevator right here. And a small storage building would be right in here. And blow up of that. believe this has a historic Charleston Foundation easement, is that
Yes.
correct? So yes, they've been in contact with the foundation and gotten their approval for the changes as well. And so anyway, we recommend approval of this request.
All right, thank you, Lee. Any opposition to the application for 48 South Battery Street? No opposition. Do we have the owner applicant? Would like to address the board?
Thank you for your time and reviewing it. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion? Ms. Grass moves to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. And the variance for 48 South Battery Street is granted. Thank you. B9, 41 Cooper Street, East Side, Council District 4, TMS number 459-06-01-027, Zone DR2F, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow two dwelling units with 1,645 square feet of lot area per dwelling unit. 2,000 square feet are required, requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow the vertical extension of a non-conforming 6-inch east side setback and non-conforming 9-foot total side setback with the addition of third story, 3 feet and 10 feet are required. Requesting a special exception under section 54-511 to allow 2 dwelling units without the required off-street parking. 4 spaces are required. The owner is Mulberry Street Development. The applicant is Neil Stevenson. Mr. Batchel.
This is a property in the east side and had a house on it that suffered fire. It's damaged quite heavily. This photograph, it's got no roof on it. Here, see. And see the house that was there was quite substantial and multiple residential units before, but it's been a while since those were occupied, so the grandfathering of those units is lost, and they're trying to basically put the house back together again and make it livable and put build an addition on it and create 2 dwelling units here. So that's the nature of the request, and here's information. So this is the existing building on the top and proposed on the bottom. So the special exception for the extension of the non-conforming setback has to do with this addition over on that other side, the 0-foot side of the property, but it's the same type of addition on what would be the east side of the building. See it in a minute here. So it's this one right here. Maybe not. No, it's this one. It's over here. That. And these plans show the 2 units and the parking. Parking is limited, but there was very little, if any, parking before for those units. So this is an improvement for what was there. These are photographs of the existing building, just showing how bad a shape it's in. So good project, and we support this and recommend it.
All right, thank you, Lee. Anybody here in opposition to the application for 41 Cooper Street? Seeing no one, Mr. Stevenson, anything you'd like to chat about?
Thank you. Just to say that this building's been vacant for 7 years, and there's 5 meters on it now. So reducing it, and actually there was an addition built on the porch, which never allowed a car to come down the driveway. So we're removing that, trying to introduce some off-street parking. So everyone in the neighborhood so far has been delighted. So I don't know of anyone who has any opposition. We still have meeting right now.
Very good, thank you. Any discussion, questions? All right, Mr. Morris, move to approve. Ms. Richards seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. Motion passes unanimously, and the special exception variance for 41 Cooper Street is granted. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda and final item, the 10, 68, 70, 70 and a half, 72 Cannon Street, Cannonboro, Elliott Bureau. Council District 6, TMS number 460-08-03-031, 032, and 033, zoned LB, requesting a variance from section 54-824 to allow adjustment of property lines to create one lot that does not front on a street. Owner in Charleston LLC, Trental LLC, and Glee LLC. The applicant is George H. Seago IV. Mr. Battelder.
This is in Cannonboro, Elliott Borough. There are 3 lots involved in this application. And they're shown here on this map. You got the large house right here. This flag lot that goes back to a historic building in the back that's used as short-term rental units right now. And then this building up on the street, this historic building up here, which has a restaurant in it. And this is an aerial view just showing the complex of buildings right here. And so this illustrates what they're proposing to do. They would like to alter the configuration of this lot for the restaurant building and give it some space around all sides of the building. Currently, the property line runs right down this side, and this is a driveway. And then they would place this building on the same lot with this main house over here and end up with this lot in the back that does not have frontage on Cannon Street. This would be the lot for that rear building in the back that's short-term rental units. And it all kind of makes sense in a way. What's there today, I'm not sure how that got approval, if it had to go through the board or not, but it was a odd subdivision to allow each lot to have frontage on the street. This is a more logical way to subdivide the property, I think, and you just end up with this rear piece without frontage and access through easements. But that is the gist of this, and it's basically commercially zoned property. Technically, short-term rental units or residential units that can be rented on a short-term basis. So I guess you could say this is a residential property over here. But anyway, I think it's reasonable given the configuration of buildings on the property, and these are historic, so I recommend approval.
What is the hardship for the variance request?
Well, Mr. Seago did a great job.
Yeah, hold on. Nobody's here in opposition.
Yeah.
Owner applicant here.
You come
Come on up.
Yes, yes. The hardship is that you have a building, is that this application and approval of this application eliminates 10 private easements. That today, principally, you have a building easement in favor of, I don't know if you know, this whole compound is called the Charlestonian. This is southbound, the restaurant southbound of 72 Cannon. Y'all know, you might know Legal Soups is in the basement right here. And
What's in the basement? I couldn't
Legal
understand.
Soups, yes, sir, yes, sir. And I'm actually proud to say that I'm the 3rd ever owner of this whole compound right here. And the original German immigrants that built this 68 and 72 Cannon, I think in about 1870, they were broke, right? And so 68 Cannon's parcel went right up to the wall, right? It was all the way. And in 1870, they created this little flag lot, right? And then 70 Cannon is a weirdly positioned, very small building. The footprint of that building, like 800 square feet or so, something like that, okay? And then that building just popped up. Well, when we went to renovate 72 Cannon, it was gutted by fire. Y'all remember the arsonist that was running around? And so I bought it from the DaCosta family and have been working on this since 2010. And so that was burned out. Well, when we went to, the BAR, and I've been in front of this board a number of times, and this driveway, therefore, has always been very weirdly proportioned. It's like 40 feet wide. And so what to do with such an extremely large driveway? And what kind of coalesced is that the BAR, rather than having any seating or even parking in there, some ideas were proposed, maybe a pergola or something. The city architect wanted it favored a wraparound porch, which was built. Okay. And so then coming back to Lee or the board, I can't remember, was the approval for a building easement, right? So the issue today is that you have the part of the structure, which is the porch of 72 Cannon, on the 70 Cannon parcel, okay? And so what that also means, and all of the utilities and ingress, egress for 72 Cannon goes in this flag right here. Also for 68, all the utilities and easements go through the flag, right? And so also to note, you see the parcel lines, technically this has no parking, right? So we're going to give it parking. And so the hardship exactly is that you're eliminating a building easement with tons of cross easements, because think about this, right? Somebody's coming, a guest is coming for a glass of wine and a steak, right? Well, that's technically on somebody else's property, right? Which requires tons of indemnifications and everything you can think about liability wise, right? And also that all the easements serving this building and this building go through the flag. We're eliminating the flag and restoring 70 Cannon to its original, more or less, a little different because of this right here, but more or less to its 1870 origin.
Thank you.
I have a question. What's the fifth building all the way in the back? Is that outside of the property line? It looks like.
Right here, right here. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That is the DaCosta shed. So the DaCosta family, beginning in 1920, purchased the whole block. And Herbert DaCosta, who was a well-known contractor, is on the BAR for a long time. So they own the whole thing. So there was a shed that he built right here that he used as a wood shed, and I used it solely as, construction shop, right? And then as we've converted to our short-term rental, really kind of like hotel operation, it's been used as linens and laundry and et cetera. So it's fully renovated now, and it's actually has a basement with a laundry use in it, and we're building we'll build right there.
But it's part of the property on the right, on the east side?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Seago? Thank you. Any further discussion? Any questions for Lee? Do I have a motion? All right, I'll give it to Mrs. Grass. Mr. Morrison, would you like to second it? Second. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously, and the variance for 68, 70, 70 and a half, and 72 Cannon Street is granted. Thank you.
And if I may, I will say something, that, and it's not just because you approved that, it's that y'all don't have to be here.